Hi, I'm Paul McLean. I'm a fine arts specialist with the Georgia Department of Education. This webinar is titled Critiquing with Kindness, teaching students to engage in meaningful artistic critique. I would like to let you know a little bit about Godot Communities. The Georgia Department of Education has launched a new, innovative platform to provide fine arts teachers, administrators, and Godot staff the opportunity to collaborate, connect, and share thoughts and resources, as well as encouragement for the 2020 and 2021 school year. We will be using this platform to engage in discussion for this webinar. The following instructions will help guide you in the creation of your own account and navigating the communities that you are interested in. Feel free to pause the video at any time so that you can follow these steps for joining. To get started, visit the Godot Communities website. You can either type community.godot.org into the search bar or the address bar, or simply type https://community.gadoe.org/. Step 1. To get started, select Create an Account and follow the prompts for setting up a new account on the platform. Be sure to use a DOE or RESA or district email account for Godot Community. Step 2. Once you have completed your account, you are now ready to join a group. Navigate to the Groups section. Step 3. This is the main fine arts group. This group will have updates, feeds, and discussions from the Godot Fine Arts Department. Step 4. Subgroups. These menu items will help you interact and communicate with other members of our online community. For more information on the navigation pane, take a look at the Godot Community navigation video. Step 5. Join the Theater Teachers Community. Artistic critique and evaluation are key components in the Georgia Standards of Excellence in the Fine Arts. The process of giving and receiving critical feedback is found throughout each artistic discipline. This includes media arts, dance, theater and film, visual art, and music. The Georgia Standards of Excellence reflect this in each course, primarily under the Artistic Process section, Responding. In media arts, there are 37 standards and elements associated with critiquing and evaluating the art form. Theater and film have over 50, roughly 60 in dance, 120 in visual art, and 160 in music. The concept is so central to the artistic areas that the phrasing frequently repeats in multiple classes. Here are some dominant examples of the artistic process responding in each of the artistic disciplines. Media arts. Apply criteria to evaluate artistic work. Dance. Demonstrate critical and creative thinking in all aspects of dance. Critique movements, qualities, and choreographic elements. Visual art. Critique personal works of art and the artwork of others. Music. Respond to music and music performance. Critique the integrity of a performance. Music also has several standards that refer to evaluating a performance. For theater arts, the standards associated with critiquing are more uniform. The phrase participating in artistic critique is the most common and most available in every course. For K through 5, the main standard title for critiquing is the same language. Critique various aspects of theater and other media. In 5th grade, the elements under critiquing change to increase the rigor suggested for the students. In middle school, the standard title is the same, but the details of the elements becomes even more nuanced. For example, these are the elements under critiquing for 8th grade. Recognize the role of dramatic criticism in media production. Utilize specific criteria to articulate dramatic criticism. Apply principles of dramatic criticism as both an audience member and participant. Implement appropriate changes based on dramatic criticism. Here it's important to note that the standard title is important, but the elements themselves define the actions students should be able to do by the end of the course. The elements are not merely suggestions, they are the definition of the standard. What is the purpose of artistic critique? Generally speaking, artistic critique can be divided into two categories: critique for a finished work and critique for works in progress. Critique for a finished work, understanding the role of the critic and the artistic critique of a completed work. For finished works, a critic can do the following. A critic can record or chronicle an artistic work or event. This is particularly important when the artistic work is temporary, such as a live performance. A critic can articulate and help maintain artistic standards. A critic can also provide consumer services to potential audiences. This is the type of service provided by a non-academic critic, such as a reviewer. Artistic critique for works in progress can be used to provide feedback to the artist in the process of developing a new work. This can also include personal critique and self-assessment. The stigma of being critical and genuine fear of critique. Artistic critique can be incredibly helpful, encouraging, even inspiring to an artist and to others experiencing the artwork. However, if done poorly, a critique or critical response can have the opposite effect. A poorly crafted critique or critical response can be more than simply useless to those that read it. It can also render the artist or the audience uninspired, creatively closed off, fearful, and emotionally broken. At this point, the criticism stops being about a fellow artist and falls into the realm of verbal abuse. When this happens, the artist receiving the criticism can begin to feel that they are personally being rejected after putting their work out for feedback. This can be very damaging and inhibit the creative process, sometimes for long after the initial incident. It is for this reason that many artists, particularly students, are hesitant to share their work and receive feedback. Verbal abuse has no intention of seeing the positive side, considering the other's viewpoint, or helping them improve. Thoughtless criticism quickly disintegrates into a disregard for the artist, and, in our case, the student. It becomes hurtful and belittling. This is why it is essential that we as educators introduce ways to provide constructive feedback and criticism. The arts have a unique ability to increase empathetic understanding and improve communication. Critiquing art can and should do the same. The first method of artistic critique we will look at is the critical response process developed by Liz Lerman. Liz Lerman created the critical response process as a method of giving and receiving feedback. Lerman developed the process in the 1990s after realizing artists tended to apologize rather than ask questions when presenting unfinished work. The process was formalized through the publication of the book The Critical Response Process, Getting Useful Feedback on Anything You Make, from Dance to Dessert, in 2003. Lerman's critical response process is a method for giving and getting feedback on work in progress designed to leave the maker eager and motivated to get back to work. It's been in use for over 25 years. The critical response process has been embraced by art makers, educators, scientists, and theater companies, dance departments, orchestras, laboratories, conservatories, museums, universities, corporations, and kindergartens. In the professional theater community, the process is used to respond to everything from performances to plays and new scripts. Critique is critical to revision. Through the supportive structure of its 4 core steps, the critical response process combines the power of questions with the focus and challenge of informed dialogue. The process offers makers an active role in the critique of their own work. It gives makers a way to rehearse the connections they seek when art meets its audience or a product meets its purpose. Critical response process instills ways of thinking, communicating, and being that all enhance all kinds of human interactions, from coaching to community dialogue, from artistic collaboration to family conversations. The critical response process is best understood by breaking down the roles and steps in the process. The roles in the process: the artist, the responder, and the facilitator. The artist offers a work in progress for review and feels prepared to question that work in a dialogue with other people. The responder engages in a dialogue with the artist, with a commitment to the artist's intent to make excellent work. The facilitator initiates each step, keeps the process on track, and works to help the artist and responders use the process to frame useful questions and responses. In the classroom version of the critical response process, each student can take turns functioning as the artist and as the responder. In most cases, the facilitator is the teacher. However, there may be merit in allowing students to facilitate a response session towards the end of the course. It is important that the teacher model appropriate facilitation early on in the process. The facilitator's role is to elicit supportive and useful feedback for the artist without discouraging the student, and to segue from step to step. Steps in the process. 1. Statements of meaning. 2. Artist as questioner. 3. Neutral questions. And 4. Opinion time. Step 1. Statements of meaning. Responders state what was meaningful, evocative, interesting, exciting, striking in their work that they have just witnessed. Step 2. Artist as questioner. The artist asks questions about the work. After each question, the responders answer. The responders may express opinions if they are in direct response to the questions asked and do not contain suggestions for change. Step 3. Neutral questions. The responders ask neutral questions about the work. The artist can respond or not. It's recommended, though, that the artist just write down the questions and note that they occurred. Questions are neutral when they do not have an opinion couched in them. For example, if you were discussing the lighting of a scene, "Why was it so dark?" is not a neutral question. What ideas guided your choice about lighting is. Step 4. Opinion time. Responders state opinions subject to the permission of the artist. The usual form is, "I have an opinion about something. Would you like to hear it?" The artist has the option to decline the opinions for any reason. Now it's your turn. Watch the video and take a full minute to reflect on what you saw before you write anything down. After that minute of reflection, try to have 2 to 3 full-sentence responses to each of the following questions. These questions represent what the facilitator would do in a live session. Write full answers to the following questions. Number 1. What resonated with you? What stood out to you? Number 2. Questions from the artist. In this case, we will use the question, were there any moments that took you out of the presentation or made you lose focus? Question 3. Do you have any questions about the performance moving forward? Question 4. What opinions do you have about the performance as a whole or specific elements of the performance?
Hey, I told you to stop walking away from me. If you would just give me a moment of your time, I promise to not waste a second of it. If you could just go through my portfolio and resume, or better yet, I'll do it for you. Sir, my name is Rosa Cecile O'Neill. I was in LJH when I was just 15, and you did not read it. Okay, that's fine. I have it in here somewhere. I have an article from Scribner's Magazine, the award from the Omaha World Herald Drawing Competition, and some of my concept sketches for the Cupies I wrote to you about. Yes, Cupies is its name. No, it doesn't mean anything, but it was featured in a women's magazine not too long ago. A women's magazine, that's correct. Well, they mean something to me, but the name doesn't have anything special attached to it. It's just that it's... Never mind, I'm rambling. You'll look into it? Really? Oh, thank you, Mr. Kessler. You will not regret this.
Once you've had time to reflect on the performance and write the answers to your questions down, please add them to the discussion post Critiquing with Kindness in the Godot Community Theater page. Critiquing finished works of art. Your job as an art critic is to decode the secret meaning of any artwork. There are many ways to critique finished performances, scripts, designs, or other artistic aspects of theater. Generally, the process can be viewed in 3 parts. What was attempted? How well or poorly was that achieved? And here you can break down the critique into specific elements of the artistic work. And finally, should it have been done? While these questions are good as a generic guide, there is a more formal process that is commonly used in the visual art world that asks the same questions but provides more structure for new responders. In this course, we will take a look at the Feldman's model of art criticism. In Feldman's art criticism model, you work through a four-step process. Feldman's four-step process is description, analysis, interpretation, and judgment. For description. In description, you are concerned with only facts. This aligns with the critical virtue of observation. What do you know about the artwork? Name of the artwork, material used, objects within the work, elements used in the artwork. For visual art, this is line, shape, color, value, and texture. But the elements, of course, will change depending on the type of artistic work being observed. For example, in the case of a performance of a play, you might use Aristotle's 6 elements: plot, character, theme, lexicon, music, spectacle, and so on. For costume design, fabric, silhouette, etc., theatrical scripts, you could use plot, character, formatting, dialogue, and so on. For individual actor presentations, voice, body, character, objectives, and the like. Analysis. How is the work organized? During this step, you are still collecting facts about the elements and principles. What elements are used, and how are they organized? What did the artist do with these elements? What themes or ideas come from the use of these elements? Interpretation. This is the creative part, where you get to tell the story of the artwork. Make guesses as to what the artist is trying to say. What is the artwork about? What messages does the artwork communicate to me? Explain or tell the meaning or mood of the artwork. You must back up your opinion with facts and clues that you collect during the description and the analysis. And finally, judgment. There are 2 levels of judgment. Personal judgment, did you like the work? Why? And aesthetic judgment. For our purposes in theater, what theatrical style best fits this work? Practice critiquing a finished work. In theater, the Feldman approach can work with actors, full performances, theatrical scripts, all forms of design, costume, scene, lighting, and sound. For our practice in this webinar, we are going to use either the monologue from earlier, but this time pretending that it is a completed, finished work, or the following monologue.
The following monologue comes from Copper Angel, a play set during World War I. A member of the ensemble comes into the light and addresses the audience as a soldier who's lost his eyes to mustard gas. He is led onto stage by the doctor and set in place. His eyes are bandaged and covered. His voice is hoarse and strained, and he pauses frequently to swallow with pain and effort. I'm not here to ask for pity or to make you feel guilty about what you don't know. I was told you would be appreciative of my sacrifice. My doctor says I'm lucky to be alive. Lucky. I was one of 10 out of my entire company to survive the attack. 122 men, and only 10 of us survived. Most died of burns and exposure after the shelling. But the rest died in the days after. They didn't tell us that in the cold weather. The gas would settle and linger on the ground, long after it was no longer visible. There's a little bit of irony in that, isn't there? I lost my sight to something that wasn't visible when I encountered it. I shouldn't laugh. I am one of the lucky ones. If I'd inhaled more of it, well, it wasn't a pleasant-sounding way to die. Is there a pleasant way to die? Perhaps in your sleep? I'm not sure. I don't sleep much anymore. People ask me what it felt like. It's like a burning, like you've gotten salt in your eye. But no matter how hard you rub, how much water you splash in it, the salt doesn't go away. It's all you can think of. Your entire mind just fills with the sensation of burning. There's a moment when you can't hold your eyelids open anymore, and you have one last glimpse of recognizable light, then nothing. No light anymore. You don't know it at the time, But that's when the optic nerve is being damaged by the toxins. That burst of light is the separation, the last thing you will ever see. Lucky? I guess I am. Isolating light fades. Doctor comes to escort the soldier to exit. End of scene.
When posting to the community, post your critiques in the community discussion. Please look at the comments of others and respond to at least 2 other posts other than your own. No matter what methodical approach to artistic critique you engage in, whether it be finished work or works in progress, there are some key critical virtues that should be employed for any process. A key component of the artistic critique is communication about a piece of art created by another. In the classroom, this is often a peer. In the arts classroom, these critical virtues should be explicitly taught in order for students to understand how to engage in communication. A critic should always be observant. To do this, the critic should use detailed observations in responding to the artwork, cite examples and specific moments or elements when making judgments. This allows the critic's audience to see for themselves the specific aspects to which the critic is responding. Number 2. A critic should be informed. An informed critic should have a wide knowledge of the subject matter to draw from, if possible, referencing points that are contextualizing works within the catalog of other existing work. This requires an understanding of contemporary and historical art, as well as the culture in which it was created. Number 3. A critic should be sensitive. Sensitivity in language helps maintain the trust of the reader. Harsh language choices often work against the author's rational point. If the critic uses charged, overly emotional language, the reader may begin to question the merits of the critic's judgment or argument based on observation and context alone. Number 4. A critic should be demanding. The critic must maintain high standards. Just because the critic should be sensitive in phrasing does not mean that the quality of expectations should be lowered. After all, one of the key purposes of a critique is to maintain artistic standards. And finally, a critic should be articulate. The critic's purpose is undercut by poor grammar and a lack of coherent fluency. Setting expectations. Have a set system of rules, norms, or reminders about the critical virtues and the steps in the process. It will help ensure a more positive critical response experience. It's a good idea to not only have these posted, but to go over them prior to each critical response session. Common norms of the process might include: raise your hand to speak, snap if you agree. This curbs repeated sentiments. Be constructive, be courteous. Avoid the words like or dislike. Be respectful to your fellow artists. Additional rules and norms could also include: don't apologize prior to starting, only say your name, and read or present the piece when it's your turn. Listeners will be attentive throughout the presentation. Notes will be taken by the responding members of the group for each presentation. Notes should be encouraging and respectful. For additional questions, please contact the Fine Arts team. Jessica Booth, Paul McLean, Casey Hall.